Tommy and Angela always forgetting they're not married in Landman is one of those subtle character dynamics that feels funny on the surface, but actually says a lot about who they are and how they operate together. It's not played like a traditional romantic comedy beat, and it's definitely not treated as a big dramatic question of will they or won't they. Instead, it shows up in the way they talk to each other, argue, make decisions, and move through crisis like a unit that already exists, whether they want to admit it or not. From the very beginning, Tommy and Angela behave less like a couple still figuring things out, and more like people who have already logged years together. They bicker the way married people do, with shorthand arguments and half-finished sentences, not the careful communication of people still trying to impress each other. When something goes wrong, they instinctively turn to each other first, not because it's romantic, but because it's familiar. That familiarity is what makes them forget they're technically not married. Emotionally, they crossed that line a long time ago. What makes this dynamic especially interesting is that neither of them seems particularly sentimental about it. Angela doesn't sit around pushing for a ring or a ceremony, and Tommy definitely isn't planning anything romantic. Their relationship runs on shared survival rather than formal commitment. They've seen each other at their worst, dealt with financial pressure, family messes, and constant stress from Tommy's work. In a world like theirs, marriage paperwork feels almost irrelevant compared to the daily reality of sticking together. Tommy, in particular, treats Angela like a spouse without ever saying it out loud. He confides in her about things he doesn't tell anyone else. He relies on her judgment even when he pretends he's already made up his mind. When decisions affect the family or the future, Angela is automatically part of the conversation. That's not dating behavior. That's partnership. The irony is that Tommy probably wouldn't even know how to define the difference anymore. Angela, on the other hand, seems fully aware of the contradiction but doesn't feel the need to correct it. She steps into the role naturally, whether it's managing household chaos, calling Tommy out when he's being reckless, or grounding him emotionally when his job starts to swallow him whole. She acts like someone who knows she's staying, regardless of labels. That confidence is part of why the not married detail keeps slipping through the cracks. Neither of them behaves like this is temporary. The show quietly reinforces this by how other characters interact with them. People speak to Tommy and Angela as if they're already a married couple. No one treats their relationship like something fragile or casual. There's an assumption of permanence that hangs over every interaction, and Tommy and Angela rarely bother correcting it. In many ways, they've let the world decide what they are because the world isn't wrong. What's compelling is that this dynamic also exposes a blind spot for both of them. By acting married without actually being married, they avoid having the conversations that usually come with making that commitment explicit. Expectations stay unspoken. Future plans remain vague. It works for now, but Landman keeps hinting that this emotional shorthand could eventually become a problem. When pressure increases, assumptions can crack. There's also something very realistic about this portrayal. Plenty of long-term couples slide into a marriage-like rhythm without ever formalizing it, especially when life is already complicated. In Tommy and Angela's case, the oil business, family responsibilities, and constant instability make traditional milestones feel optional. They don't forget they're not married because they're careless. They forget because, functionally, it doesn't change how they live. Still, the show doesn't frame this as purely positive. There's an undercurrent of avoidance running through their relationship. Tommy avoids slowing down long enough to examine what he really wants. Angela avoids pushing the issue because she knows how quickly Tommy shuts down when he feels cornered. Forgetting they're not married becomes a coping mechanism, a way to enjoy the security of commitment without confronting its permanence. That's why their dynamic feels so lived-in and human. They aren't chasing a fairy tale ending or a dramatic proposal. They're just trying to get through each day intact. The fact that they operate like a married couple without being one isn't a joke at their expense. It's a reflection of how deeply entwined their lives already are. In the end, Tommy and Angela forgetting they're not married isn't about romance or denial. It's about two people who have already built a partnership strong enough to blur the line between what's official and what's real. On paper, they aren't married. In practice, They've been acting like it for a long time, and Landman makes it clear that whether they ever make it official or not, the bond they share is already binding.